Aleyda, thank you so much for joining me in this session. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you have a client meeting coming up, so we'll keep this one to about 20 minutes to give you extra time to prepare before your meeting. So this session is about creating magic SEO enterprise software that solves all of our problems. And I'm just going to try to get an idea of, first of all, name a few tools that you use all the time that are really helpful and that solve your problems. What would you say you use all the
Yes.
time?
So tools that I use all the time, whether for let's say smaller or even big websites, for example, SEMrush, I use it in pretty much every SEO project that I work on. For keyword research, for keyword mapping opportunities, there's this other tool that is called Keyword Insights that I can really see how it can facilitate things for many, especially biggish SEO projects, because they pretty much help you to automatically map and create topic clusters and with your website, already establish web structure, and then establish target queries that you preload with them. And then there are also all the tools that I think in pretty much every project, like Phrase is a content optimization tool that allow you to assess how semantically relevant your content is already for any targeted group of queries. So it suggests you terms, topics that you can include in your page or your content based on those are already ranking well. So yes, correlation doesn't necessarily imply causation, but it gives you a good idea of what Google, let's say, is ranking well in any case, to take that into consideration. Then, on the other hand, for technical optimization, I use a group of tools. Let's say I use Bodify, which I might say that potentially, especially I provide a lot of SEO consultancy for established brands. A lot of established brands already use it in-house. So whenever I am doing consulting for them, it's very straightforward because they already know, the type of I don't know, even alternative that they can get access to if I share the access to the tool directly, even if they won't use it, right? But
Yeah.
because I will analyze and provide recommendations and an action plan based on what I find. But it's always let's say a little bit relieving to them knowing what you will use to gather the data, right? And it's going to be reliable. Then Content King, that was just recently acquired, I believe it was Right Age, I think. No,
Yes,
Conductor.
connector.
It was Conductor, and is a brilliant, because it is not only an SEO alerting tool. When I started to use it, I pretty much use it to know whenever a group of very important static pages change their canonical or title tags or important elements, whether technical or content focus of important pages that we're not supposed to be changing all the time, right? But now I pretty much use it to, let's say, fast forward my technical audit, because it's also a real-time crawler at the end of the day. And it integrates with Index Now. It integrates with Cloudflare via
Yeah.
API. So you can also, let's say, have like a basic log file type of feature or understanding there to see the activity, the real activity by the Googlebot of your pages, and if something is really wrong or going bad with a few of them. So I really, really like it. And then, of course, I use Write. I use Write, let's say, as the overall tool where I can tie together, and I can have certain features that are certainly not available in other tools. So, for example, I really, really appreciate that the Write crawler has the ability to aggregate the data from the Google Search Console, Google Analytics, and put it all nicely together to filter out and to easily understand the most important areas or sections or pages that have a high impact in terms already of search volume or clicks already, and have indexability issues or don't have internal links, or so that flexibility on the UI that they have, I really love it. And then of course I believe that their dashboard for the Google Search Console is like the missing UI that we don't have in the actual Google Search Console, because of how they allow you to identify anomalies
Oh,
in
yes.
whatever
Very important.
metrics they report on: click-through rates, impressions, yeah, positions, of course, and then new keywords that for which you have started to rank, or keywords that you have stopped to rank, cannibalization issues. So I think that can save you a lot of time, especially in big websites where you cannot go through easily manually through the top pages, right? So and then finally, as a rank tracker, I have to say that I started to use last year advanced web ranking, right? I started,
Oh,
like, I
okay.
was using
Back to
I
it.
was using back to, like, I mean, I this was one of my first rank trackers when I was
Yeah.
starting in SEO, like the desktop version. And I have gone through many rank trackers through the years, and it's true, I use SEMrush for some projects rank tracking. I also use I use certain tools that provide a feature, and I have found that advanced web ranking Philip does an amazing job with this, right? He's like always identifying what is the new search feature that Google is showing. So, for example, if a product carousel is being shown, the other day they released the ability to be able to see and track the web stories, visual stories for men that are now being shown more and more. And then also they allow you to track not only per position but also per pixels, that at the end of the day, and they tell you, like, for this page is ranking or it's being shown above the fold or not. So it helps to explain a lot of the click behavior of the user too. So it has all this more granular, let's say professional oriented feature to allow you
And
to
an
better
API.
analyze. It's
So
amazing.
you can
And
get
an
the data
API.
out of it as well. Yes. Yes.
100%. So I think that is pretty much my main stack, right? Now and then I use extra tools. So Surfer, I sometimes use Surfer, the content analysis tool, to validate what I get from phrase. And then I have other tools here and there that I use to validate data, right? But my main one are the ones that, yeah, I
Yeah,
just
that
mentioned.
sounds like a really strong list, and you've described them so well. It sounds like you using bits and pieces. It's a little bit all over the place, and you know what you're doing with it, so you're okay. But another SEO might find themselves all over the place with the whole thing. But I'm guessing,
Yeah.
since you mentioned that Write is one of your tools that wraps things up, I guess, for you.
Yeah.
How do you actually, did I miss the part about the reporting? What do you use to package everything up and send the report?
Yes, at the end of the day, everything is exported in Google Sheets at this
Yeah,
point, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah,
I blend the data together using Google Sheets templates that I have, and my SEO recommendations and usually are Google Docs,
yeah,
where I provide all the details. The Google Docs will link to a Google Sheet with all the data from
yeah.
that my counterpart can go through, for which I am explaining, and with screenshots and recommendations and actions in the Google Docs, and then a Google Doc per area. So technical recommendations Google Doc, or content recommendations Google Doc, etc. And then I do a Google Slides that will link to the Google Docs, pretty much as a
To
executive
summarize the whole
summary
thing. Yes.
with priorities, top 10 priorities found through all the areas, and linking to each doctor. So it's like build from more granularity to higher level. And pretty much the decision makers will only see
The slide.
the slide, the executive
Yeah,
summary that is top 10 slide, whatever. The SEO will actually go through the Google Docs and the Google Sheets, right? But so, yeah, but
I
and
love
also
it.
I do something similar also in with reporting, right? It's very personalized. I can do it because thankfully I am not an big agency, right? I consultancy, boutique consultancy is only a number of clients, and I believe that is the right ideal way to do it, to be able to personalize. The same with reporting, rather than with a single click to report with whatever metrics you're using to track and monitor the behavior of your project, right? The rankings, traffic conversions, whatever your KPIs are, I can definitely see how it can be so hard for bigger agency, for an agency with hundreds of clients or dozens of
Yeah.
clients, in order to try to automate that. So I can definitely see how there's an opportunity there, right? To
Yeah.
automate this process, but with meaningful KPIs, meaningful metrics, all the flexibility, because one of the issues is that I can see how many of these agencies, because they try to be able to fulfill the demands of so many clients at the same time, they end up, yes, providing the reporting with no meaningful metrics or generic metrics that many of these tools will end up giving, and then yeah, not being so easy to communicate things or to make things happen with this metric, especially if you're trying to communicate with non-technical decision makers, right?
Oh, absolutely. So you've already touched on my next question, which was about what are all your tools missing? And is there a tool? So it's a two-part question. What are your tools missing? And is there a tool that doesn't exist but should to solve a problem that you have?
Yes, so I think that the tool I believe that is going to be very, very hard. Ideally, I wish to have all of these features that I have mentioned in a single place, in a single platform, right? That would be something amazing, like a single interface that I can also gather all the data and blend all the data directly without having to rely on Google Sheets or third-party document editor, right? That would be amazing. I don't think it exists. Then, on the other hand, what I do believe that independently, if this can be created or not, what can be really, really, really amazing is to have let's say, a way to like a dashboard. I think a lot of people use Google Data Studio for this too, and Google Sheets for this, like a layer of platform layer that allows you to aggregate all of this data in a way that is meaningful, that is actionable, that allows you to easily share in a flexible way with decision makers and also SEO. So you can communicate easily the metrics that are crawlability, indexability, whatever technical metrics you're trying to monitor to improve with stakeholders or SEOs, and then all the sort of metrics with decision makers and clients that are not technical, right? Like the actual traffic, the conversions, the impact on revenue, in a way that you can easily tie and map those pages that you're working
Yes.
on, the queries that you have been working on to improve with their behavior from a conversion standpoint. That easy way to integrate doesn't exist at this point, right? Then one thing that I wish I was able to do also with many of these tools is I am not always, especially enterprise level tools, won't allow you many times to register online
Yeah.
and pay with a single click, right?
Talk
It's
to our
crazy.
team. Have a meeting.
That is the
How much
worst.
does it cost? Just tell me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That is the worst red flag, and I have to say that whenever I see that, is because of course, it is not cheap, right? But then I can understand, but then that gives me this sense of lack of transparency in their pricing model. On one hand, that they will charge me more or less depending on my brand, depending on the perception of my, yeah, if I have the budget or not or whatever. And even if I understand that if it cannot be completely automated, that at least there's a pricing landing page explaining with the scenarios even the range of pricing that I can expect. Oh, for a website between this and this and these URLs, or this traffic or whatever criteria they take into consideration, you can expect to have this sort of pricing if we track or if you do this and that, right? And for this other website, so a few scenarios like this, so I can have a reference or an idea of what I can expect, to avoid wasting my time sometimes or not, right? So,
Yeah.
but yes, ideally at this point, if you have a SaaS, please make the most out of the SaaS, which is like self-serving, right? It should be.
We'll
It should
just
be.
we'll just go to forums or Reddit or somewhere else, and we'll find out from an actual user how much they're paying. We'll find out one way or the other. You're just annoying us.
Indeed.
And I feel the same way that you do. it's like when they're not giving you the price or even an idea, it's like this dodgy guy in a dark corner trying to sell you a fake Rolex. You know, you ask how much and he goes, how much you got?
Yeah,
It's really in poor taste. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But
yeah,
I think already at this point in our conversation, and we're in the 15th minute, we got 5 minutes
yeah.
to wrap up. And I think you've nailed it already. I think
Thank you.
you've brought up something that hasn't been quite covered in my previous interviews, and that's the fact that um, we need a framework that's capable of integrating everything together that currently exists, and that's to me sounds like there's a need for standardization um, and flow of data between different tools. So it's almost like we don't really need a new tool. We need something that joins the bits and pieces together.
If all tools had easy to use APIs that didn't cost a leg and an arm extra of what you already pay sometimes, because sometimes they charge you even extra to use them, that would be amazing, right? Like I imagine, if or Zapier, yeah, the no code integrators, something like this for SEO that is able to connect with every single SEO tool and allows you to populate dashboards or documents that you can easily have flexibility to create. Something like that will be amazing.
Now that's
and
that's perfect because
and
yeah,
and another idea, sorry, that I just was reminded right now, as I didn't know that this wasn't something that all people assume or saw. But the other day I was talking with someone who is starting working with bigger clients as an SEO consultant, right? And this person was asking me, how do you do to crawl and to analyze all the pages? And I was like, wait, are you telling me that you're really trying to crawl the 40 million URLs of this website? Forget about it. So I assumed that people already knew about this, but I can see how many people who are not used to working biggish type of environments like this, uh, they don't see it. And also I can see how tools don't facilitate it. To be able to define segments, easy to establish segments per already existing traffic, segments of the different silos or areas of the
semantically,
website, semantically even, or per hierarchic structure even. So
yep.
flexibility on criteria based on what you consider important on the website, so you don't need to try to crawl it all, or the tendency without having the experience, right,
Yeah.
to crawl it all. Because I can definitely see how I already know this, but also it takes a little bit of a while of understanding of the web structure and the taxonomy of the website in order to define well good criteria, right, to not end up crawling stuff unnecessarily that you don't really need, to be able to assess that this type of websites in this type of categories or product lines or service lines are actually lacking or not, and wasting your time in going through data and going crazy with data. So the ability to do that filtering across all of the metrics, content, technical, whatever, that would be amazing.
Brilliant. Particularly because a tool can get stuck in a loop and crawl infinitely.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what you're saying is like there's about us pages and all the content, and then there's the blog, and then there's the product pages and categories, and they all have their characteristics that could be easily recognized and defined, and crawling parameters could be set based on those rules. That's a great, fantastic idea. Now, remember you mentioned having I can't help to think in terms of hardware when you mentioned this, because to me software is analogous to bits and pieces of hardware. I mean, I
mm,
use pieces of hardware myself. Like this is one type of synthesizer, this is the second, and this is a drum machine. In a studio, you'll have them mounted in a rack. There's a standard, for example, called Eurorack, where you mount
mm-hmm.
all your devices together. The Eurorack has a power supply, and you can link them all up, and they all run in tandem, and you can play them together as a single
Yeah,
unified instruments. Now, in the late 90s, they started developing a new standard for the music industry, and they have these virtual instruments that can plug into any type of software. So if I have a favorite software now, and it's called Reason, where I can do all my virtual instruments, anyone can develop a new instrument and plug it in into that software. So people can write a little module for this software that I use, and I can purchase a piece of software that performs a certain functionality.
Yeah.
If we've done that in music industry, and if that we've done in all sorts of industries, cross compatibility, I think there's a strong case here that we could do something similar for the SEO industry. That sounds like a really big one. Um, I think we have a lot to cover still. However, we don't have the time. But
Yeah.
I would love to have you with me in another chat on a different topic at some other time, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, sure
Um,
thing.
and we'll cover another topic in a bit more depth. And with that, I thank you so much for your inspiring ideas and a fantastic list of all the tools you use. I think everyone will find very useful. Thank you so much, Aleyda.
You're welcome. Happy to help.